قلدت ظاهر ما فيهم فبدوت شخصا آخر كي أتفاخر، وظننت أنا أني بذلك حزت غنى، فوجدت أني خاسر. فتلك مظاهر. لا 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 نحتاج المال كي نزداد جمالا، جوهرنا هنا في القلب تلالا. لا لا نرضي الناس بما لا نرضاه لنا حالا، ذاك جمالنا يسمو يتعالى. أوه 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 أوه. كن أنت تزداد جمالا، كن أنت تزداد جمالا. لا 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 لا. أتقبلهم الناس لست أقلدهم إلا بما يرضيني كي أرضيني. سأكون أنا مثلي تماما، هذا أنا فقناعتي تكفيني، ذاك يقيني. لا 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 نحتاج المال كي نزداد جمالا، جوهرنا هنا في القلب تلالا. لا لا نرضي الناس بما لا نرضاه لنا حالا، ذاك جمالنا يسمو يتعالى. أوه 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 أوه. كن أنت تزداد جمالا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Ahmed Al Sayed. Welcome to another episode of Healthy Mind Matters, which is part of the Safe Adolescence Project, an initiative by the Islamic Society of South Australia to create awareness on mental health and mental illness challenges among our community, especially within our youth. We did a mental health awareness video which was posted on our Facebook page on the 11th of August. We thank our community and Dr. Aisha who took part in making of the video. Today we would like to debunk the myth and misconception on mental illness and mental health issues from an Islamic perspective. Please send in your questions in the comments below and we will address it in our next video, inshallah. We also welcome suggestions on other topics that you would like us to discuss in future sessions. I would like to introduce our guests for today's session. We have today Professor Muhammad Abdullah, who is the Director of the Centre of Islamic Thought and Education at the University of South Australia. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
And we have Imam Muhammad Al Sayed, who is the Imam at the Australian Islamic College and a member of the South Australian Imams Council. Welcome, Sheikh. Mental health is a growing concern within our community, and especially during the current pandemic that we're going through, we're seeing mental health challenges and issues arise within our community. Professor, how do Muslim scholars view mental health issues from an Islamic perspective?
Thank you for that question. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. Thank you for hosting us, and also thank you to the Islamic Society of South Australia for this very important initiative that they have undertaken and I'm equally honored to be with my dear brother Imam Sheikh Muhammad. Mental health issues and looking or dealing with it is actually not new to the Islamic world nor to the Muslim scholars. And that's something that we need to understand. In fact, the Islamic civilization has made tremendous contributions in the field of medicine broadly, but also in the field of mental health issues, psychiatry, psychology generally. But before I dwell on that, just let me take you and the audience a step back and talk about Islam's attitude generally towards doubt, suspicion, superstition, and its attitude towards evidence-based, whether the evidence base is religious or otherwise, which is very important because this is what inspired the rise of medicine in the Islamic civilization. That is Islam's insistence that when it comes to faith, for example, believing in Allah and the hereafter, it should not be on hearsay, it should be evidence-based, and the evidence should be in the form of authentic revelation. And also Islam emphasized that when it comes to other aspects of life, we must not build our views or our beliefs on suspicion, superstition, doubt, and that's why when it came particularly to issues that are medical, what Muslim scholars have done in the past, in addition to contributing to medicine broadly, they actually made it scientific. We often hear the names of, Al-Razi and Ibn Sina and the contributions they made to medicine broadly, but the novelty of Islamic civilization's contribution to medicine, meaning the greatest significance, was that it made it scientific. And that is, it said, we will learn from the Greeks, for example, and we will learn from the Indians their medicine, but we will not base it on theory alone, we will test it based on the assumption that based on the belief that we reject superstition, we reject doubt and suspicion. It has to be built on evidence. That's one. And then they were also inspired by the prophetic tradition, the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who, for example, said in one hadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not send an illness, but He sent with it a cure. Now what that did is that it created an impetus for the Islamic civilization to search for cures. And to search for cures required experimentation, it required evidence-based, which is interesting. And that is why for a good 800 to 900 years almost, Islamic civilization, and I say Islamic civilization is not Muslims only because there were Muslims and non-Muslims working under the Islamic civilization, physicians and doctors, they advanced medicine to such a large extent that medical textbooks which were compiled by Muslim physicians like Ibn Sina remain the medical textbooks in Europe until the 18th century. Right? Until the 18th century, they were the medical textbooks. Now, for the sake of our discussion, what we also need to realize is that there were a number of Muslim physicians, and not always Muslim, but some of those are predominantly Muslim, who actually specialize in what we understand today as psychology, right? So, for example, you have Abu Zayd al-Balkhi, al-Kindi, al-Razi, Ibn Sina, even Imam al-Ghazali, rahmatullah alayhi, spoke about that, al-Farabi. All of those people, in addition to talking about medicine broadly, etc., but also they spoke about nafsiyat, they called it, right? The science of the self. Just to give you an example, and it's simply to debunk the idea that Muslims did not address these issues. They did address them in the past, and they continue to accept that mental health issue is like a physical health issue. Both need to be treated in a similar way, i.e., let's find out what the illness is, and let's find what the cure, and whatever cure. Just quickly, al-Balkhi, for example, Abu Zayd al-Balkhi, we know, it is probably he was the first cognitive and medical psychologist that we know, the first cognitive and medical psychologist. We think he was the first to differentiate between neurosis and psychosis. And we know that he discussed emotional disorders such as stress, depression, and otherwise. And they approached it holistically. which may be a distinguishing difference between Islam's approach to mental health issues and maybe modern approach to mental health issues. There are parallels, there are things that they agree on, but I think what Muslim scholars said in the past and did, and what they would probably say and do today, and this is where Sheikh might elaborate on this further, is that we have to take all the necessary means to treat mental illness, but we must not also forget the spiritual aspect of the human being. We mustn't only try to treat the physical and the mental, but all are interrelated, because we have to look at the human being as a whole being in which the mental and the spiritual and the physical are all interrelated. And in doing so, they emphasized in the past, they emphasized self-analysis, reflection, meditation, self-awareness, and du'as and so forth. So I think, just to sum it up, I think the attitude of Islam and the attitude of Muslim scholars of the past and of the present was a very positive, pragmatic attitude towards illnesses generally. They did not see, for example, mental health issues as they did in the Dark Ages of Europe. They didn't see mental health issues as the battle of demons and the Satan in the mind of the human being. They said, no, we have to look at this from an evidence-based approach and provide all the necessary help we can.
Thank you, Professor, for sharing your insight. I didn't know myself that mental health historically was seen as an issue among the Muslim scholars and the community. Sheikh, sometimes we do hear mental health issues is being related to sihr or magic and jinn. What does Islam say about this, and will this misconception affect the process of seeking treatment?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. First of all, I would like to thank the organization for allowing us to have this wonderful conversation. I'm honored to be right next to the Professor Muhammad Abdullah, dear brother, and a knowledgeable person, a scholar that we all learn from. So thank you for being here as well today, and it's a wonderful discussion. And I would say Islam have a balanced approach towards mental health illnesses, like the professor said, and it's been discussed historically in the past. A lot of scholars cover those areas and try to find based evidence solution. And when Islam comes to discuss mental health illnesses, we talk about the physical part and the spiritual part, and we should have always a balanced approach towards that. The issue for us these days is unpacking the terminology. How can we approach case by case? And we've seen in the past some of family members, someone we know that who straight away went to the spiritual side rather than seeking proper treatment, rather than seeking professional psychiatrists or doctors who can deal with the issue and give insight, treatment, respond to this case. But we take the easy path most of the time, and we think is just sihr or jinn or mas, which is Islam approved that as well. It exists in our community, it exists in the past. The Prophet ﷺ received sihr himself, and we know that was mentioned in the Sahih. Alhamdulillah, that wasn't affected him in any way, like not his body, not his mind, not his spirituality, nothing affected him, but he was also afflicted with the sihr, and we know that he asked Ali ibn Abi Talib to go fetch out the sihr, and the revelation of Al-Ma'udatayn came down to recite, we all recite. So how can we approach this is to clear these misconceptions, to find a proper path. Communication is a good starter, to talk and communicate among your family. If you see one of your children afflicted with any of the mental health illnesses, you should always seek professional help first.
It's very interesting. I myself suffered mid to late last year. I suffered a bit of anxiety myself. I had a few things change in my life, and I was tested, and things were things sort of started. I was going through a few challenges, and things seemed to be getting worse. The first thing that I thought was someone's put the eye on me, or someone's put a curse on me. But then I took time to sort of break down what was happening in my life, and I did go seek professional help, and made me realise that things happen in life, and we just need to sort of break them down
and also one of the misconceptions that in order to seek professional help in terms of spirituality, we have to go to a knowledgeable person with the Quran to recite the Quran. We don't have to do that. You can do ruqya to yourself, you can read the Quran to yourself, you can heal yourself with the Quran, like we encourage to do that as well. On the same time, seek professional help from someone else. And we've seen also some cases that where people abuse this in a bad way and make a mean of gaining money from other people.
Okay.
I think just on that point, if I may also, sometimes, and just like in your case you were mentioning, we try to find a scapegoat, we try to blame somebody outside of us when we have some of these issues. And we say, well, it's not possible for me to have mental health issues, depression, anxiety, therefore somebody must have done something to me. And as the Sheikh clearly mentioned, whilst we do recognize the metaphysical realities of, the jinn or sihr, these are things we cannot deny because we have been informed about them in the Quran and the Hadith. But then if the automatic response should not be, when I've got a headache, when I've got a depression, anxiety, automatic response should not be somebody else did it to me.
Yes.
But what you've done, you did a process, self-reflection, maybe, and if certain events in my life, trauma, for example.
Correct.
People go through a tremendous war trauma, or childhood trauma. These things have a tremendous impact on people. And whilst doing ruqya on them or Quran might help, but it's not going to help entirely because trauma requires professional medical attention to help people come out of that trauma.
And this also taking us back to suspicions, and we in Islam we encourage not to have suspicions. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم. Allah commanded us not to have suspicion about other people. And the scapegoat, like the professor said, that the first thing we think of, that someone else, give me the evil eye, who made sihr for me. So I start thinking about other people in a bad way, and then that would lead me to other bad deeds, which is, following by in the same order in the ayah. اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا. So that would lead me to make tajassus, spying on those people to make sure that they've done this to me or not. And then after I found a juicy story that they that day or this event or this wedding, they were there right next to me and saw me doing this or doing that, wearing this beautiful dress or beautiful suit. They looked at me in that way. So I start talking about it to other people. So that will lead me to another act of haram, which is backbiting. So we have to stop it from the beginning, and we have to seek professional help from the beginning. While we, at the same time, doing ruqya to ourselves, reading the Quran, Adhkar al-Sabah wal-Masa', Prophet taught us to say that in the morning and to say that at night time, and when we say that we are protected under the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this show good husn al-dhanni billah, good assumption of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and everything. And whatever happened to us is from Allah. The Prophet mentioned that in the hadith clearly. It is everything happened to the believer is good for him. Good or bad is good for him. Hatta shawkata yushatiha, even if just a little prick.
And in fact, there are specific adiyah, du'as for ham and gham. For example, ham and gham, depression, anxiety can be part of mental health issues. Severe depression. Specific du'as that the Prophet has taught us. I think what we're both also saying at the same time is that there has to be a holistic approach to mental health issues. On one hand, you have to seek professional help, but also don't neglect the spiritual aspects of reading the Quran, of dua, etc. But you know, I always say you can never find a solution if you don't know what the problem is.
Mhm.
And if you're assuming the problem is this, but it's not, then you're not going to find a solution. And so this is where medical expertise comes in. In fact, it becomes, you know, it's part of the requirement that we take the asbab, we take all the necessary means in order to find a cure. And somebody once said, you must advocate for your own health. You know, if you feel unwell, go and find the right professionals who can help you with the mental health issues or physical health issue. And this is where the Islamic part comes in. As the Sheikh mentioned, don't forget the du'as and the salah and the Quran, etc.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you very much, Sheikh. It's amazing to see how our Muslim scholars have always relied on medical and professional assistance in dealing with mental health issues, not only in this day and age, but also historically. And how the Sheikh has mentioned the importance of not making assumptions, avoiding assumptions, and the importance of seeking treatment. So, Professor, in your experience working with the community, what could be the main reason for the hesitation of people seeking treatment?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I think one of the reasons for hesitations is unawareness of what mental health issues are, what it means, and immediately there is an association with insanity and madness, and people feel that if somebody's got a mental health issue, therefore it's either, you know, there's a sense of shame that they don't want people to know that they or some members of their community or their family rather has a mental health issues, because what will people say that my son or my daughter, and but also there is the things that we've just talked about, this idea of suspicion or superstition sometimes, you know, that oh my God, this is because of sihr, or it is because of jinn, and we can't talk about it. That's one. So lack of awareness, lack of understanding, but also equally I would say a failure to understand Islam's approach to this issue and things that we have just talked about. Sadly, many people may not be aware of this, and they simply associate illness to physical illness only and not mental health issues. And thirdly, I would say mental health issues is a taboo topic, you know, and
stigma.
It's a stigma, you know, and people feel, you know, which is unfortunate because they feel it's a stigma because they know that the reaction of the community is going to be negative. So it's a two-way street. So the community needs to become more aware about this issue, right? So that we can help families, you know, come out and say we need help. And so it's not only the family or the individual, but the entire community.
Like this again will take us back to a holistic approach, how we can approach it as a community, not just as individuals or families who are just afflicted with this mental illnesses.
So absolutely, yeah.
I think it's safe to say that you know, people suffering mental health issues are not alone, and that it is more common than the stigma. So it is very common out there, and I think once people sort of, as you said, Professor, move away the pride and, you know, what will people think, then seeking treatment and getting better the process will move a lot quicker, and you know, you'll see light at the end of the tunnel.
I mean exactly. I mean, think of it this way also. You know, a member of your family comes and says, "I'm in serious pain, physical pain," and if our response to that, "Oh my God, don't tell anybody," you know, about the physical pain, because maybe that physical pain, maybe it's sihr or jinn. How do you think of that approach? But then if this father or this mother or the community feel, well, let's get this tested. That's the first response. Let's get it tested. And so you go and do all the tests, etc., blood tests and God knows what. And imagine this now, if it comes back and they say, may Allah forbid, may Allah forbid, this cancer. Right? Now, how do you deal with that? Now it becomes an obligation on the parents. It's no longer a choice. It's an obligation on the parents, an obligation on the patient also to seek treatment, right? This is where the hukum comes in, this the ruling that now this is an obligation.
كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته.
Exactly. On one hand, the hadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says that you are responsible for your children in this case. But also, on the other hand, the maqasid al-sharia, the higher objectives of sharia, is hifz al-nafs and the intellect, al-aql. So the preservation of life and the preservation of intellect. So if you neglect offering treatment to somebody who is suffering from cancer, then you're actually liable.
Absolutely.
You are mas'ool, you are responsible, not only under the law, but in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Equally, on the other hand, somebody comes with a mental health issues, which can be sometimes detrimental because mental health issues could lead to suicide.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And the more you ignore it, the more it becomes problematic. That's why there has to be within the household, within a given family and communities, we need to start talking about these issues. And parents need to sit with their child or children or son or daughter and say, we recognize that you are suffering. We may not understand fully what you are going through, and we may not understand the technicalities of it, but we believe that you are you're suffering, and we will do whatever it takes to help you through this.
Yeah, subhanAllah. It's I think just getting over that initial fear will, and I hope our viewers get a better understanding of how to deal with these sort of issues, and then moving forward would be easier, especially for our youth. Sheikh, with your experience working with the youth, what advice do you give parents to encourage them to seek treatment for their children?
I would just I wouldn't add much to the professor advice. Is the most important part is the holistic approach. How can we approach it? So it's more work in education, teaching people how to approach these kind of issues and how to react to it. And clear misconceptions, clear superstitions. Islam, of course, come to clear against all type of superstitions. The Prophet says in the hadith, "La tayr," where the people in Jahiliyyah used to, before they travel, they used to throw a piece of paper on flock of birds. If they flew this way, that means the traveling will be safe. If they flew the other way, the traveling will not be safe, so they delayed. And when the Prophet ﷺ was on expedition with the Sahaba, and the Sahaba went through, while they're on the path, they found a tree where they used in Jahiliyyah, they used to hang the gears on it. Just to, if they hang the gears on it, that means they win the battle. The Prophet ﷺ forbid them from doing that. So clearing the misconception and superstitions comes with education, comes with learning. And this is the responsibility of all the parents, all the teachers, all the community leaders, imams, shuyukh. This great responsibility lies on us, and we need to approach it in a professional manner. And I would say, like, for example, as a teacher, you need to do a first aid course before, like, to get your registration. I'm thinking, what about the mental health first aid course? Like a course, introductory course for every educator, for every teacher, for every parent, to what to do in this type of situation. How can we approach it? How can we react to it? So these misconceptions need to be clear, and of course parents should be encouraged to seek the professional help, while at the same time making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us through these tough times. So again, it's the taboo in the community, stigma that many people just take as a scapegoat, that sihr, ayn, and things like that, because they feel the pressure from the community coming towards them. Because if my son was or my daughter was diagnosed with mental health, she will not get married. He will not get married. He will have a bad career. He will have this. He will have that. No one will be a friend with him. So they fear the reaction of the community, and that's what pressurized them to go to the scapegoat rather than seeking a professional help. And again, the loser will be our children, which should be our responsibility and our focus.
Do you feel that within the schools there is a greater awareness now than previous with mental health?
Well, teachers are trained to give, if they have any signs, to give feedback to parents. And in some of the past, in my experience, some parents, they actually deny those, and they think this is an allegation from a professional teacher come towards them and telling them, your son needs some help, your son needs this, need that, or under the spectrum, you need to do this. So they deny this allegation, and they think, they take it very seriously, and they react in a bad way.
Yeah.
So, because we're not educated, we should educate ourselves. How can we, what do we know about mental health issues, and how can we deal with it with our children?
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Professor, you mentioned earlier about mental health issues leading to suicide. What advice can you provide people that are suffering mental health and suicide is sort of a thought or a fear that they're going through right now?
Yeah, that's a very difficult issue, I would say. And again, the first point is to recognize that there is evidence, ample evidence to demonstrate that mental health issues has led to suicide. Not only can it lead to, but it has actually led to, whether in the wider community or in the Muslim community. And so the first thing we need to appreciate is that Islam's position in suicide is quite categoric and very strict, and that is suicide is prohibited, it's haram. Because we don't have ownership of our own souls. These souls are a trust that Allah has given us, and we have no right to take other people's lives and our own life. But of course, people who have extreme mental health issues may lose control of that capacity to make that judgment and may end up sadly taking their lives away. Therefore, this is where it comes back to what we've said initially. The minute you recognize that there are signs of mental health in your children or your students or family members, then take action. Don't deny it. Don't ignore it. Talk about it and seek immediate professional help. That's one. And don't think that one session or two sessions is going to be enough. There will be multiple sessions that a person may require. And also then, it is not enough for families to rely on medical help only, professional help. They need to make substantial changes in their household.
Absolutely.
Right? In order to assist their family members. So for example, the father or the mother or other factors may be leading to this mental health issues, right? And so it's very difficult because maybe the entire family requires mental health education, as the Sheikh mentioned, or they require mental health professional assistance in order to help them assist this person from abstaining from, or helping them rather, inshallah ta'ala, not taking the step of suicide. Right? So again, the holistic approach, the recognition that it exists, the seeking of medical help and assistance, not to ignore it when it comes to our attention, and to actually sit with the person and say, well, what can we do to help? How can we help?
Communication, that's very important.
Sure.
Yes.
How do you think we as a community can create a safe and supportive environment from people suffering mental health?
Yeah,
issues?
excellent. I think, and we've already mentioned a number of things. I would like to, for example, imams can begin to talk about it explicitly on the minbar, right? So that the people listening can see, and not one khutbah only, not one sermon only, multiple. And maybe they can be a unified khutbah, series of khutbahs on this topic. That's one. Because when people hear it from the authority, they may say, oh, well, it gives it religious legitimacy to seek help. Right? That's one. Secondly, I think we need to, as a community, whether the Islamic Society of South Australia or the Imams Council or schools, can play a civic role in this and have workshops for families, for community, right? And workshops where you actually have young people and their families together, sometimes separate, sometimes together, so they can all hear the same message. And these workshops should include pretty much the topics that we've discussed here today, and that is, what is the Islamic perspective on these things, to give it that religious legitimacy, and then you bring professionals to talk about it. And I think part of the workshop should also include, this is where we create safe environment, bring people from within the field to talk to the community, that you mustn't fear us, you know, as psychiatrists or psychologists.
And also people who were afflicted in the past and they are healthy now, in a good mental health. They talk about their experience, so people learn from their experience. Maybe their parents as well talk to the other parents to educate them, you know, how we dealt with this based on experience. Exactly. It would be beneficial as well.
And also we need to try to identify in our community, where are the psychiatrists and psychologists? I mean, I know we found it very difficult to try to find a Muslim psychologist or psychiatrist. So, and this is a call out, I guess, for anyone who's listening to this program. If you are a psychiatrist, a Muslim psychiatrist or psychologist, please come forward. And if we don't have enough in South Australia, let's invest in that, in this. We mustn't always think of investing in bricks and mortar. We have to invest in key areas which can uplift the mental health of the whole community, and can provide the necessary support for individuals who are suffering from mental health issues.
Just want to clear up, just for our viewers. So if anyone within our community is, you know, a professional psychologist, psychiatrist, please feel free to contact the Islamic Society of South Australia, and we would love to work with you and to help our community. But as well, to our community, don't feel obliged that you need to only seek a Islamic professional. There is, you know, we're blessed in this country with a lot of professionals, whether they be Muslim or non-Muslim, and they'll be able to provide you that support either way.
I guess, and that is absolutely true, and I guess the reason I sort of a little bit focused on emphasizing a Muslim psychiatrist as psychologist, because I have come across cases where Muslims, rightly or wrongly, they say the non-Muslim psychiatrist doesn't understand where I'm coming from.
The spirituality side.
It's the comfort.
Exactly, to provide some level of comfort.
Yes.
And it's we need to have all the resources available to assist people who have mental health issues. And these resources, whether they are from the wider Australian community or from within our community, right? For example, I mean, if a Muslim may go to a psychiatrist who does not appreciate maybe the worldview, Islamic worldview, and this patient really feels, if he or she feels this is sihr or this is jinn, if they feel, they're not going to say that to the, right? So we're not dismissing nor undermining at all the excellent expertise that is provided out there, but it does help if we have also our own counselors, our own psychiatrists, etc. Wallahu a'lam.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you, and I think from a cultural perspective as well.
Or maybe can they form a board of professional Muslims that can provide free services, free advice, maybe once a month, once a fortnight, for those who actually can come out of their comfort zone and talk to people with confidence and seek help as well. Maybe something, this is the community and the organizations can work together to provide the platform for a meeting like this.
Absolutely.
Again, to our viewers, if you are
because that's, I'm sorry for interrupting, that will open another question, which is the financial stress on some of our families. They can't afford to take the children or seek professional help if it's too expensive. So maybe if we can provide a cheaper option or a free services for serving the community, and this is of course based on our religion, there's a reward in this. That would encourage more parents to come.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, the beauty about our community is whatever struggles people have within our community, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, He's blessed us to find a way out for all of our, for people within our community. So again, viewers, please feel free to reach out if we can help. Sheikh, people with physical illnesses sometimes, people with physical illnesses, we given an exception from religious activities like fasting or Hajj, for example. Is it similar for people that are suffering a mental illness?
Look, الأصل في التكليف الشرعي العقل. Like the Sheikh Professor mentioned, that the Islam come to preserve, one of the maqasid of Sharia to preserve nafs and to preserve aql, intellectual. The same narrative, العقل مناط التكليف. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala لا يكلف نفسا إلا وسعها. He won't make things difficult for people who cannot afford to do the act of worship. So if in Islam, if someone is aqil, someone is sane, someone is aware of what's around him and what he's doing, he is a responsible person, and he need to perform his ibadah as every Muslim should do. However, it's a broad question, and you can have one answer for this question because it's case based. Like some people have different severe cases, like they have a coma, or they lose awareness, severe mental illnesses. They lose awareness of what's around them. So in this case, they're not required or they're not judged for if they missed any good deeds or they didn't do the prayer. Again, the Prophet ﷺ also mentioned hadith رفع القلم عن ثلاث النائم حتى يستيقظ والصبي حتى يبلغ والمجنون حتى يفيق. وكما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. So the Prophet ﷺ exempt three people from taklif, from ibadah, from responsibilities, which is the sleeping person until he wakes up, young people until they reach the age of puberty, and then someone who's majnoon or lost, who's not aware of his surrounding until he come back to his senses. So based on this hadith and the Quran, no one is responsible for anything if they don't have any awareness. And Allah knows the best.
I think what is also important to note, and this is a message to our families and our young people also, we need to recognize limitations. And whilst the Imam might be able to give general advice, we have to recognize that you cannot go to an Imam to seek advice for a professional advice on a mental health issue. That's very important. And the reason I say that is because people tend sometimes to go to the Imam because they think it's a spiritual illness that only requires a spiritual treatment. And whilst there might be some truth to that, and the Imam can help somewhat, but on both sides, the Imams, and I'm sure they do that, feel that this is beyond my expertise, and I can refer you to, and I advise you to go and seek professional advice. But also the individual seeking the advice from the Imam must recognize that the Imam also has, this may not be his area of expertise, and therefore I can seek some guidance from the Imam or the leader of the community, but professional help and medical help is vital.
Now it's a balance of both spiritual and professional help. Professor, Sheikh, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. Exactly.
You've provided us with important information to debunk this myth and misconception of mental illness in Islam. To our viewers, please type in any questions in the comment sections below, and we will do our best to address it in our next session, inshallah. Thank you for viewing, and again, please reach out to the community if there's anything that we can assist you with, and to our professionals out there, if you would like to work with the society, please get in contact with us, and we will see what we can do to work together. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.